Hey, it's James, and in this video I am going to reflect back on my fall 2017 semester and my goals for spring 2018. And what I'm going to do is a 3-2-1. So 3 challenges that I had in the fall, 2 positive experiences or things that I felt I did really well, and then 1 goal for next school year, or maybe even just for spring 2018. So if you see me looking down, it's because I wrote some notes on my laptop, my work laptop, to kind of keep me focused on this video. So actually I'm gonna start, I'm gonna do my 2, I guess, pluses, and then I'm gonna go into my challenges because that's gonna provide some context when I explain the things that I felt I maybe need a little bit more work on for the rest of the school year. So my pluses are my interactive notebooks. I felt that compared to last year when I came into the classroom, while I did interactive notebooks, I had a hard time just keeping up with them last school year because if you watch my last vlog, it was just a very difficult time. So one of my goals for this school year was to make sure that I was keeping up with my interactive notebooks, making sure that I was doing the whole left side, right side. Right side where like the input goes in, like the notes, and then the left side is where students demonstrate their understanding. And so I actually kept up with that all fall semester. Even when I started to become a little bit disorganized towards the end, I kept up with the notebooks. The second plus were the student learning stations. For a variety of reasons. Number one, it allowed me to differentiate for the students, so students got to pick and choose which stations they went to. They got to choose whether they worked individually or if they worked in small groups. And it's also the area that I scored really high on when I had my evaluation, differentiation, problem solving, and critical thinking. So just the way that they were designed allowed students to discuss the concepts with one another, and we did a station. At sometimes it was like every week, but I think it was like every other week in the beginning. So I felt that I did that really well. It also allowed me to make sure that I was implementing reading and writing on a continual basis in my classroom. My first go around in teaching, that's something that I struggle to do. So given my other positions as a district specialist, as an administrator, I knew that coming back into the classroom, I wanted to focus on that. It's also aligned to what our campus goal is, and also the district initiative to ensure that we're implementing, literacy in our classrooms. And even though I'm a science classroom, scientists, they do still read and write. Even though my students aren't right now currently reading a whole bunch of science journals, or they're not writing in that way. Scientists in our fields still do read and write, and I think reading and writing is just one of those skills that are that is important outside of my classroom. It's a lifelong skill. So if I'm doing my part to contribute to having students reading and writing while they're in school in a science classroom, then I feel that I'm doing my part, and the stations allow me to keep up with that. So going into now my challenges, my 3 challenges. So while the stations allowed me to do incorporate writing and have the students write a lot, I felt that grading and providing feedback on the writing samples was something that I struggled with because of just the number of stations that we were doing and the number of students that I have, over 150 plus, and that's not even counting my dual credit classes, or class I should say. I only have 1 class of that. It just became difficult for me because, as I said earlier, there were sometimes we were doing a different station topic every week. And so with that, I was collecting these writing samples, and I had to have time to sit there, read them, grade, and provide feedback. And at a certain point, I became overwhelmed, especially when students weren't turning in the writing samples. And that goes into one of my other challenges. So if you are whether you're a science teacher or you're an ELA teacher or just somebody who does a lot of writing in your class and you have an idea, please feel free to leave that in the comment section or hit me up on either my Facebook or Instagram at BalmWithJames, because I'm always interested in receiving maybe perhaps some feedback and tips for making that a much easier process for me. I'm also going to work on that in the spring semester, so that way I don't become overwhelmed, because I definitely want to seek out some strategies for being able to do that much more efficiently than I was doing this past fall semester. Going into now student work. So students, and this is just something that I struggle with. So in one of my vlogs, I talked about reclaiming my time, and that was because there were students who either weren't turning in work or they were turning in work that was incomplete. And you know, in the beginning of my career, if students did that, like I would either just grade it, and you know, if it was like 50% incomplete, then they got the grade that they got. Or if they didn't turn in work, then it was just easy for me to put in a 0. But as you know, I've gained more experience teaching and I've had different roles and my pedagogy has developed, I'm trying to hold students accountable for completing the work. It's like, okay, you turn in work that's incomplete or you don't turn in anything at all. That's not acceptable. Mainly because I want to make sure, again, I'm holding them accountable. But then putting a 0 into the grade book, even if I put what, in my grade book, if I put what is an MSG in the grade book, that counts as a 0. It's going to drop their grade. Especially for some of these writing assignments, because they're weighted a little bit differently than just a regular assignment because of just the amount of work that they have to do for it. It's going to drop their grade, and in some cases, if they don't do the assignment, they'll fail. So in the beginning, maybe halfway through the fall semester, I struggled with that because I had some students, they weren't turning in work, or like they just didn't want to do the writing assignment. They would tell me like, I don't like to write, so I'm not going to write. And I literally would have to like hound them to get to do the writing samples. Or students, they would, you know, they would write a little bit, but they didn't follow the directions, and they would try to turn it in, whether it was a writing sample or some other work, incomplete. So what I started to do towards the end of the semester was assign Saturday school, because my school, we can assign Saturday school for students for a variety of reasons: makeup work, missing assignments, makeup test, tutoring, etc. So I assigned Saturday school after Thanksgiving break, and actually surprisingly, a majority of the students that I assigned Saturday school went. And so I think that might help in the spring semester for students that don't, because they were already turning in. Like I had when we did another stations activity after that incident, I got a higher return rate of the samples back versus when I wasn't assigning Saturday school. So maybe that's something that will work for me in the spring semester. And I told students, like, I don't want to have to assign you Saturday school. Like, if you're struggling, like, come see me for help. The other issue is that I didn't really have a deadline for work, you know, because I was trying to hold students accountable for turning in the work to me. I was accepting work up to 3 to 4 weeks late, and I was, as crazy as it might sound, like I was awarding students full credit for it. And I don't know if that's the right decision. That's something that I still struggle with. I'm curious to know what any of you, like what you do in cases where students aren't turning in work. I know I'm going to be a little bit more, I don't know, what's the word for it? Vigilant? I don't know. In regard to getting students to complete the assignment. So if they're not doing that, making sure that I'm calling home or using our school messenger right away, or talking to admin to see perhaps what services they can provide me to help in cases where students aren't turning in work and it's causing them to fail because I'm, you know, putting a temporary 0 into the grade book. And I don't want to do that. I want to hold them accountable, but it's at what point do I say, okay, this is enough, like I'm not taking any more work, which I had to do, unfortunately, the last grading period of the fall semester. And there were some students that, unfortunately, because they didn't turn in the work on time and I was like, no more, they ended up failing. But it just, they were trying to turn it in like that last week of the grading period, and there were a whole bunch of other things that I needed to do, and I just couldn't do it. So that's just something I struggle with right now. It's a dilemma that I go back and forth with. And again, I'm curious to know, like, if you're a teacher, like what you do in regard to student work and deadlines. The other, so challenge 1 was writing samples, challenge 2 was deadlines, and then the other challenge also goes back to the stations, was needing to check in with the students more. So in the beginning of the school year, when I did the stations, I would just kind of like walk around and, you know, check in with students. There really wasn't a process for that. But then I noticed either students were copying or they just were passively going through the stations and they weren't really like trying to soak up the information. So what I did about halfway through the semester is I implemented this like completion check that I put on the student answer sheet. So before they were able to go to another station, they had to call me over. I would check their work, and then I would stamp off, and that was, you know, the signal that they were on the good to go, clean up, and go to another station. But I realized that was kind of just superficial. Like I would I would check the work, and majority of times it was correct. But by the time maybe we moved on to the next day, students, not all of them, but some of the students showed that they were struggling. So one of the things that I want to try to do maybe in the spring semester is implement maybe like a teacher station. So, or maybe some other alternative check-in. When a student tells me that they're done with the station, I come over with maybe additional extension questions and ask them, or have them come sit with me and we do like a one-on-one. Or if they're working in a small group, I do like a small group discussion with the students to make sure that they understand the concepts before they move on and complete the entire station's activity set. I don't know, like I'm still debating what I want to do with that. I do know that I want to have more frequent like extension check-ins, and that leads me to my goal. So maybe with my goal that I might solve this with it. So my goal is, and I'm just going to read what I wrote here, is work on establishing a student-centered learning environment through carefully crafted learning experiences. Okay, like I'm not like an overachiever when I write that, but if you watched some of my vlogs, I've talked about, or I've even shown, I think even one of the clips that week that I was having a bad week when the technology wasn't working, like I've been working on creating the blended learning experiences because our students are going to all get laptops in the spring. I think like the second week of January, they're gonna get their laptops. So we will be a one-to-one campus, and the district and our campus is pushing for blended learning experiences. And I dabbled with it my first go around in the classroom before I left, and I know it works. I just need time to develop that. So my goal in the spring, and what I've been working on right now during my winter break, is creating some experiences where, you know, it is student-centered. Students get options and they can pick and choose. It's like, hey, you have the option to do a lab, do this lab, or you can do both of them if you can complete them in, you know, within the allotted time frame. Or if you're struggling, then here's this little module that will help you a little bit more, or you can work one-on-one with me. So I want to, you know, free it up where like I'm not just teaching all the time. I am, and not that I did that in the fall semester, but I want to be more of like coach, mentor, facilitator. And hopefully through, my idea is not going to come to fruition in the spring semester. I think I can start building it, but my goal is for the fall of 2018 to kind of, when the school year starts, to have this program set up for the 2018-2019 school year. So that's my 3-2-1, my 3 challenges, my 2 positives, and my 1 goal. So the fall semester of 2017, you know, while there were some hiccups, I definitely cannot complain compared to fall 2016. Did I say fall 2016? I meant to say fall 2017, if that's what I said. So fall 2017 is going a lot better than fall 2016. So I definitely can't complain, even though there were some minor hiccups. But overall, I think the semester went pretty well, and I'm looking forward to spring of 2018. Well, that's it. If you're interested in checking out some of my other clips, you can do so by clicking on any of the links right here. If there was anything about this particular video that you liked, then make sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and or share the video. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe so that way you can bond with James. As always, thanks for watching.